I was thinking this weekend about the problems we face as a nation and what their real root causes are. It seems that much of it stems from the values that have been adopted by the majority of Americans and their leaders. These values would put these people squarely into the debtor class. In contrast, we have the saver class, who I think are well represented by the stacker community. I thought it might be an interesting exercise to compare characteristics of debtors against savers and put the comparison out there for comment. Chances are that much of this will resonate with you. Okay, here comes some blanket statements, but since we're comparing classes of people, making generalizations is unavoidable. Fortunately, we can probably get away with being politically incorrect here. After all, there is no implied link here between race, religion, sexual orientation, or political affiliation and the classes shown on the left and on the right. What puts a person into either category is their system of personal values. And this is not to say that everyone who is in debt is necessarily a debtor. A person can take on debt when it is necessary and not be part of the debtor class, so long as the person strives to get out of debt. A primary characteristic of a saver is that he or she is a hard worker. He or she believes in an honest day of work in return for an honest day of pay, exchanging value for value. There is no attempt here to get something for nothing. This person wants to work and do a quality job. The debtor, on the other hand, has a characteristic to work only as hard as needed. You've seen these people. They tend to always think that they're being taken advantage of, and so they will take shortcuts and do whatever they can to minimize what they do to get by. The saver tends to be rooted in the present, but also thinks about the future and what it may bring. The saver knows that the future is uncertain, but believes that with the proper planning, he or she can live comfortably in the future. The debtor, on the other hand, tends to focus only on the present, with little regard for future consequences of present choices. And as a result, the saver will underconsume. He or she will produce value significantly greater than what is needed for present consumption, and will work to save the excesses. The need to save is generally what leads the person to work hard, and is also what leads the person to live a fairly simple life with some fairly modest expenditures. The modest expenditures often lead to a counterintuitive outward appearance. People who actually have wealth will usually drive the least expensive cars and live in simple houses. Debtors tend to overconsume. They spend all of their income and then some on a lifestyle that cannot be maintained. Often you'll see these people driving fancy cars. They will always be going out to dinner. They may hire people to landscape their property, and the property may be much larger than many others in the neighborhood. This may give others the appearance that these people have wealth, but the reality probably is that they are deeply in debt. The saver will try to avoid debt. Often debt is taken on as a necessity with the intention of paying it off as quickly as possible. The saver despises being in debt. The debtor, on the other hand, will generally borrow as much as others are willing to lend. This person has a mindset that they will always be in debt. They will make the minimum payments necessary. You may even hear them say that their intention is to die in debt, ultimately cheating the system that they claim is taking advantage of them. The saver, having an interest in preserving his savings, prefers hard money. In other words, he or she doesn't want the money they've chosen as their unit of account to decline in value over time. They've worked hard to produce a surplus, and they want that surplus to serve them well in the future. The debtor prefers easy money. They want their unit of account to decline in value over time because it means that the burden of their debt will decline over time. Again, this is a way to avoid delivering value for value. Having a money that declines in value is a way to build up greater debts because it makes the old debts less burdensome. You'll note that precious metals cannot back the money used by this class of people, primarily because it cannot be manufactured in great quantity. The saver believes in individual freedom. They're willing to live with the consequences of their own actions and don't want to be burdened by the poor choices of others. They tend to value the Constitution and will usually take an unpopular stand when they see that any action is being taken to curtail individual rights. The debtors, in contrast, believe in collectivism. They tend to believe that laws should focus on what's good for the group, or at least that's what they say. But the reason is generally much more sinister than that, so let's discuss it. So here's the crux of the greater problem. The saver believes in self-reliance, and there are very few of us in this category. The debtor believes in redistribution of wealth. They will claim that the wealth of others was illegitimately obtained and the result of the collective work of the group. Their figureheads will often find a very wealthy individual, point to them, and say something like, "You didn't build that." I'm sure you know what I'm referring to here. They ignore the fact that the bulk of the wealth that is out there has been built by underconsumption and savings. They will generally claim that everyone needs to pay their fair share. The real motivation, however, is to redistribute wealth and to enjoy the fruits of the labor of others. So there it is. I think that many of the problems that we're facing right now are because the majority of people fall into the camp on the right and not the camp on the left. I think this will change in our lifetimes, but the change is not likely to be pleasant. I'd welcome your opinion on this. Let's discuss it.